Anna woke up, as usual, at 6 in the morning to the melodic sound of her phone alarm but quickly silenced it. Oh, just 5 more minutes, she thought, as she drifted back into the interrupted sleep. However, sudden noises from the next room made her wake up immediately. It was her mother-in-law, Helen, as annoyed as ever. Anna stretched, pulled off the blanket, and placed her warm feet into cold slippers. The heating hadn't been turned on yet, and the weather outside had noticeably cooled down. That's why she didn't even want to peek out from her cozy bed. She put on her robe and was about to head to the bathroom, but just as she reached the door, Helen hurried into the shared bathroom right in front of her. What a trap, again didn't make it in time, Anna thought irritably. With a sigh, Anna walked into the kitchen, filled the kettle, and turned on the gas. Helen always drank green tea in the morning, so she needed to brew it in time for her mother-in-law's arrival. For herself, Anna made Turkish coffee in a small pot, poured it into a cup, and sat down. Helen passed by her with a sugary smile, clearly in a better mood than usual. Probably because her kindness is nothing but pure fake, thought Anna as she listened to her mother-in-law's critical tone. Why did you pour me coffee? Helen suddenly shouted. You know I only drink green tea. You've been living with us for a year and still can't remember that. Anna listened to the tirade and, leaning out of the bathroom, called back, the coffee is for me. Your green tea is on the table in the porcelain teapot? Helen muttered something under her breath, but Anna didn't bother repeating herself. She knew there was no point in shouting, her mother-in-law wouldn't hear it anyway, and if she raised her voice more, Helen would accuse her of yelling. The commotion woke up Anna's husband, Mark, who sleepily stumbled out of the bedroom. In an irritated tone, he addressed his mother, Why are you two shouting again first thing in the morning? You're not letting me sleep. Enough with the sleeping already, Helen snapped back. In the old days, people would get up at dawn and start their work. And look at you. No children still, living like you've got no purpose. Anna sighed again, hearing yet another remark about not having children. Helen poured herself some tea and began to loudly sip it. Ah, so hot, just perfect, she said with satisfaction, completely forgetting that it was Anna who had prepared the tea for her. After breakfast, Anna washed the dishes, swept and mopped the kitchen floor, vacuumed the 2 bedrooms and the living room, and finally began to get dressed for work. And when are we going to clean this house properly? Helen shouted from the living room. Soon it's the holiday, and there's dust everywhere. Helen, maybe we can do it on the weekend? After work, I really don't have the energy, Anna replied as gently as she could. But her mother-in-law, of course, found something to complain about. You're always too tired to help your mother. You live in my house like royalty, but when it comes to getting ready for the holiday, suddenly you don't have any strength. She spoke as if referring to both Anna and her husband, but naturally, Mark was in a different category. Being her son, he could relax on the weekends, lie on the couch, or come home late from work. But Anna's weekends were strictly for fulfilling Helen's long list of tasks. At work, Anna was known as Mrs. Williams, and she taught home economics to young girls. She taught them to cook, sew, and knit. At first, the girls giggled, not understanding why they needed to learn these skills when food could be ordered, and ripped clothes could simply be thrown away. But Anna managed to convince them that in life, any skill could be useful and gave them examples of real-life situations. Over time, the girls grew to love their teacher for her ability to be both kind and firm. Work was Anna's only refuge, a place where she could find some peace away from the constant criticisms from her mother-in-law. Helen, however, never stopped belittling Anna's profession. What kind of job is teaching home economics? She would say with disdain. All day on your feet for a meager salary, and no respect. Mothers should teach their daughters to cook and sew themselves. You're just living off my son and me, not contributing anything to this house. Anna did her best to avoid these conversations, as she had no intention of quitting her job. She loved teaching and had no plans to leave the school, but Helen always found new reasons to make Anna feel inadequate. Anna had long suggested to Mark that they should rent their own apartment and live independently, but he always gave the same response, I can't leave my mother alone. What if something happens to her? What if she needs help or an ambulance, and no one's there? Anna was tired of hearing the same excuse over and over. It'll be us who end up getting sick living in this atmosphere, not her, she said, often with tears in her eyes, but Mark never took her concerns seriously. One day, after yet another argument with his mother, Mark stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind him. He came back late that night with a faint scent of perfume clinging to his coat. Anna, suspicious but careful, asked him where he had been, but Mark only muttered, nowhere, just walking around the city. Trying to suppress her worries, Anna told herself that it was normal for someone to pick up a stranger's scent in a crowded place. But when Mark came home late again a few days later with that same perfume lingering on him, Anna started to feel uneasy. This time, she carefully examined his coat and found a long, chestnut-colored hair on his shoulder. Anna was blonde and had short hair, so the hair clearly didn't belong to her. Still, she tried to rationalize it. Maybe someone's hair got stuck on him on the bus. But when Mark left the house again after another argument, Anna decided to follow him. She put on her soft sneakers and a hooded sweatshirt, sneaking out quietly after him. From a distance, she saw him walking down the street, talking on the phone. "I'll see you at our cafe," as usual, she overheard him say before he headed toward the bus stop. Anna realized she wouldn't be able to follow him in the bus without being noticed, so she hailed a taxi instead. The taxi driver, a young man, glanced at her through the rearview mirror with a knowing smile. "Following your husband, huh?" he asked playfully. "The more you know, the faster you'll age," Anna replied coldly, not in the mood for jokes. The driver immediately switched to a serious tone and drove in silence. After a few stops, the bus pulled up in front of the factory where Mark worked. Anna watched as he got off, looked around cautiously, and then, from the opposite side of the street, a woman with long chestnut hair ran up to him. Mark quickly kissed her on the lips and took her by the arm. Together, they walked leisurely toward a nearby cafe, the same one where factory employees often had lunch. The taxi driver looked at Anna, waiting for her next instruction. "Take me back home," she said flatly. The driver didn't ask any more questions and found a spot to turn around. Back at the apartment, Anna stood in front of the building and stared up at the windows of their place, feeling a sudden, sharp reluctance to go back inside. Why had she spent the last year living with people who pretended to be a family but felt like strangers? Anna realized that she had been holding on to something that wasn't real. Her true family were her adoptive parents, who had taken her in when she was 8, saving her from a miserable life in an orphanage where older children had bullied her relentlessly. She often remembered the warmth and safety she felt when they rescued her from that awful place. Her real family still lived in a small mining town where Anna had finished school and attended a local teaching college. After earning her diploma, she moved to the big city with a friend, seeking better job opportunities because there were no open positions for teachers in their small town, which only had 2 schools. It was at the employment office where Anna met Mark. He was also searching for work in engineering. She was immediately drawn to his simple, kind demeanor, his gentle voice, and the comforting, homely scent that seemed to linger around him. They had dated for about 6 months before Mark introduced her to his mother. At first, Helen had been friendly, almost sweet, but after the wedding, everything changed. It was as though someone had flipped a switch, and Helen transformed into a bitter, critical person who found fault in everything Anna did. If Anna had known that living with such a difficult woman was in her future, she might never have married Mark. Mark, who had seemed so loving and caring during their courtship, turned out to be a typical mama's boy, more concerned with his own comfort than anything else. They didn't have children, not because of any health issues, but simply because Mark wasn't interested in starting a family, even though his mother constantly insinuated that the problem lay with Anna. After standing outside in the cold for a while, Anna realized she could catch a chill and reluctantly headed back inside. As she stepped into the elevator, her thoughts swirled. This isn't a life, it's some kind of slow, emotional suicide, she thought as the elevator took her up to their floor. When the doors opened, Helen was already waiting in the hallway, arms crossed, her face lined with irritation. "Are you out of your mind? I've been calling and calling, yelling through the whole house, and there's no one home. Where on earth have you been?" Helen barked. Anna gathered every ounce of patience she had left, took a deep breath, and, with as much calm as she could muster, replied, "Helen, I'm leaving. For good." Without waiting for a response, she headed toward the bedroom to pack her things. Helen stood frozen in the hallway, mouth slightly open, utterly shocked at what she had just heard. As Anna began folding her clothes into a suitcase, she felt a huge weight lifting off her shoulders. With every item she packed, the burden she had carried for so long seemed to fade away. She felt lighter, more at peace, and even had a sudden urge to sing. She called her friend and asked if she could stay the night. "Of course," her friend replied, though she couldn't hide her concern. "But what about Helen? And Mark?" "Mark has found someone else," Anna said with a slight hint of sarcasm before ending the call. When she arrived at her friend's apartment, Anna recounted everything that had happened over a cup of herbal tea. "Drink this," her friend insisted, "your cheeks are flushed, and I don't want you catching a cold." However, despite her friend's care, Anna fell ill and had to spend several days in bed, recovering. While Anna was bedridden, her friend took care of her, making sure she rested and recovered. During this time, Mark called several times, demanding to speak with his wife, but her friend answered the phone each time and firmly told him to leave them alone. After a few failed attempts, Mark stopped calling. When Anna finally felt well enough to return to work, she noticed that she couldn't speak for long without coughing or becoming short of breath. It wasn't long before her students started to worry. One day, while teaching, she suddenly found herself gasping for air. Her students, terrified, ran to get the principal, who immediately called an ambulance. After several tests, the doctors informed Anna that her cold had worsened and developed into chronic bronchitis, affecting her respiratory system. They told her that continuing to work in the school would be too strenuous for her, as her condition made it impossible to speak for extended periods of time. Anna's friend urged her to find a job that didn't require talking so much, and together they began searching for other options. It wasn't long before they came across a job posting. A wealthy family was looking for a live-in cook. Anna, feeling she had no other choice, called the number and arranged an interview. The interview took place in a large, elegant mansion. She was greeted by the lady of the house, Julia, who was both elegant and friendly. As they spoke, Anna explained that she had a degree in food technology but had spent the past few years teaching. Julia smiled and said, "Even better. It means you'll approach this job with professionalism." She then gave Anna a tour of the kitchen, the equipment, and the small but comfortable room where she would stay. The atmosphere in the house was calm, and the relationship with the owners was cordial and respectful. Anna felt her health improving as she adapted to her new role. She spent her days preparing meals, keeping the kitchen clean, and maintaining order. As she worked, she often hummed her favorite songs to herself. Back in college, she had sung in the choir and always loved performing. Now, in this peaceful house, she felt a sense of freedom that she hadn't experienced in a long time, not even when she had been teaching. Here, she was mostly left to herself, with her tasks providing her a sense of tranquility. In the evenings, Julia and her husband, David, would come down for dinner, discuss their day, and then retreat to their rooms. They usually asked for simple, light meals, sometimes just yogurt or something similar. Anna often wondered why such a wealthy couple, with no children in the house, needed such a large mansion and so many staff members. They had a cook, a maid, gardeners, and security guards. One day, the maid mentioned that the family had a 16-year-old daughter who had a beautiful singing voice and was studying at a prestigious conservatory in the capital. The daughter stayed with her grandmother during the school year and only returned home for holidays. The idea of a talented daughter intrigued Anna, but between her daily duties, she soon forgot about it. However, just before New Year's Eve, something unexpected happened. As Anna was preparing breakfast one morning, she suddenly heard the sound of a piano coming from upstairs. Quickly finishing her tasks, she removed her apron and quietly made her way up the stairs, following the music. The notes floated through the house from the room belonging to the daughter she had heard about, and Anna, curious, approached the door. The music stopped for a moment, but then it was accompanied by a stunning soprano voice. The sound was so pure and beautiful that Anna felt goosebumps rise on her skin. Entranced, she found herself singing softly along with the melody, completely absorbed by the music. After a minute, the singing stopped, and the door opened. Standing there was a young girl with long, chestnut-colored hair, looking at Anna in surprise. "Who are you?" she asked, clearly puzzled. Anna, slightly embarrassed, replied, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I was listening and accidentally started singing along. I just love Schubert. I'm the new cook here. You must be Julia and David's daughter?" The girl smiled warmly and nodded, extending her hand. "Yes, I'm Sophia. Nice to meet you. Why don't you come in? Maybe we could sing together? I think our voices would match well." Still a little shy, Anna hesitated for a moment but then smiled and accepted the invitation. Sophia sat back down at the piano and began to play again. Once more, the room filled with the sound of the serenade, and Anna, despite her nerves, joined in the singing. Though she was worried she might falter or lose her breath, her voice held steady, blending harmoniously with Sophia's. When the last note rang out, Sophia jumped up and hugged Anna. "That was amazing. From now on, you're my singing partner and best friend," she exclaimed joyfully. Anna couldn't help but laugh, feeling a sense of happiness she hadn't experienced in a long time. From that day forward, after every breakfast, Sophia would call Anna up to her room, and they would practice singing together. They sang arias and duets, their favorite being the Schubert serenade they had performed that first day. "Papa will be so impressed," Sophia said excitedly one afternoon. "He loves Schubert too, and I can't wait to show him how talented you are." The New Year's Eve preparations were in full swing as the big day approached. A grand white piano was delivered to the house, and Sophia spent all day practicing on it, admiring the clarity of its sound. When the evening of the celebration finally arrived, the house was filled with guests, and Sophia, acting as the hostess, announced each musical number with charm and enthusiasm. At one point, she approached Anna, who was in the kitchen putting the final touches on the dinner. "Are you ready?" Sophia asked with a grin. Anna, dressed in an elegant black dress that she had once worn as a teacher, had styled her hair into a neat bun and lightly applied makeup. The maid, passing through the kitchen, barely recognized her in her transformed appearance. Sophia led Anna into the grand hall, where the guests had gathered. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sophia announced proudly, "I would like to introduce my dear friend and duet partner, Anna, who will join me in a very special serenade." The room fell silent as Anna approached the piano. As the first notes of the serenade began to play, the guests listened in rapt attention. Anna and Sophia's voices intertwined beautifully, filling the hall with music. When the last chord faded, the room erupted in applause, led by David, Sophia's father, who looked visibly moved. "Bravo," he shouted, and the guests eagerly followed his lead, clapping and cheering for more. After the performance, Julia and David came to the kitchen to find Anna, who had already changed back into her work clothes and was busy cleaning up. David, still full of admiration, approached her and asked, "Anna, may I ask about your parents? Were they musicians too?" Anna, taken aback by the question, smiled modestly and shook her head. "No, my parents were just simple teachers." David looked even more surprised. "With a voice like yours, I would have thought you came from a family of musicians. You should have pursued singing professionally." Anna blushed slightly, feeling both flattered and uncertain. "My parents always said it was important to have a practical career, something reliable. That's why I became a teacher. I sang in the choir during college, but that was just a hobby." David listened attentively, then responded seriously, "But you have an extraordinary gift. In a small town, maybe no one noticed, but I'm telling you, your voice is something special." Anna, still hesitant, said, "I appreciate your kind words, but I think it's too late now. My life has taken a different path." David chuckled gently. "Too late? You're only 24, Anna. You're young, and it's never too late to change your life. You should think about studying music properly. You don't have to go to the capital, there are excellent conservatories in other cities, even here." Anna looked at him in disbelief. Could he really be suggesting this? Seeing her doubt, David continued, "Listen, I've been supporting young talents for many years. I'm what you might call a patron of the arts. Ever since I lost my first wife and child, I've dedicated myself to helping people develop their skills and talents. It gives me a sense of purpose." At the mention of his first wife, Julia lowered her gaze, and David gently patted her hand as if to reassure her. "They died in an accident," he explained quietly. "For years, I couldn't bear the sound of children or even the sight of a happy family. I lived in grief until Julia came into my life and helped me rediscover joy. Now I have a new family, but I still feel a responsibility to honor my first wife and child by helping others. That's why I want to help you. I'm offering to support you financially while you study. You won't have to worry about anything." Anna was stunned by his offer. She didn't know what to say, her emotions swirling between gratitude and disbelief. "I don't know how to thank you," she began, her voice trembling. "It's such a generous offer, but I don't think I can accept it." David smiled warmly. "Don't decide right now. Just think about it. You have a remarkable gift, and it would be a shame to let it go undeveloped. Let me help you unlock your full potential." Anna nodded, still feeling overwhelmed. That night, as she lay in bed, she couldn't stop thinking about David's words. For the first time in a long while, the future didn't seem so bleak. Instead, it shimmered with new possibilities. 10 years later, in the front row of a grand theater, Mark and his mother, Helen, sat in silence, waiting for the evening's performance to begin. Both of them had aged considerably, and Helen, her hands shaking from the onset of arthritis, nervously thumbed through the program. Suddenly, her eyes widened as she spotted a familiar face in the photo. "Mark! Look at this! Doesn't she look exactly like Anna?" Mark took the program from his mother and froze. Staring back at him from the page was indeed Anna, though she had transformed into someone far more elegant and confident than the woman he once knew. She was radiant, exuding the aura of a star. As the lights dimmed and the orchestra began to play, Anna stepped onto the stage. The audience erupted into applause as she stood poised, ready to perform. Mark sat there, stunned, as her powerful, emotional voice filled the theater, reaching every corner of the room. Helen, too, was speechless, unable to reconcile the woman on stage with the daughter-in-law she had once treated so poorly. When the performance ended, the audience leaped to their feet, showering Anna with standing ovations. After bowing, Anna addressed the crowd, her voice filled with gratitude. "I want to thank those who believed in me and helped me reach this point. First and foremost, my wonderful patrons, who supported me from the very beginning. And of course, my dear friend and musical partner, Sophia, who shared this journey with me." The audience cheered, and Sophia, now a successful musician herself, waved from the front row. Anna smiled warmly before continuing, "I also want to thank my husband and manager, Daniel, who organized tonight's concert." The spotlight shifted to a tall man sitting in the first row, who stood up and bowed as the audience applauded. At that moment, a small voice rang out from the crowd. "Mama, what about me?" Anna laughed, her eyes shining. "Yes, and my biggest thanks to my son, Leo, who always keeps me grounded. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause to my little star." The crowd erupted into applause as a young boy waved excitedly from the front row. Mark and Helen sat frozen in their seats, watching as Anna, surrounded by flowers and adoration, took her final bow. The curtain closed, and with it, the realization hit them both: they had lost someone truly extraordinary, someone who had soared beyond their expectations and left them far behind. Thank you for listening to the story to the end. Write your thoughts about it in the comments. Subscribe to the channel Tell Me and share this video with your friends and loved ones. This motivates us to continue working on new stories every day. Do not miss the next amazing story that is about to appear on your screen. We are very grateful to you for being with us. In the description under this video you can open the catalog of all the stories. See you there.